beef, cattle, Argentina. Some hot topics right now. So, what's the beef? I've been getting asked a lot recently my opinions on some of this stuff. I've been holding off because it's complicated and I've been ruminating a little bit. But I wanted to give my initial opinions on a few of these things and the reason why some of these, like grocery store prices, are so high right now. But I want everyone to feel free to comment their questions. If they disagree, if you're within the industry, if you have a different opinion, I'd love to hear about it. My plans are to deep dive on a lot of these different topics and learn myself, but also try to educate the general consumer about beef and the beef market. So, are cattle numbers and beef prices high? Yes, grocery store beef and cattle, U.S. cattle prices are at all-time highs right now. Why is that? Well, a little supply and demand, basic economics. We are at a 50 to 60 year low in cattle numbers in the U.S., but you could argue that we've been that way for, a while now, for at least 6 or 7 years. Also, we are producing the same amount of beef as we were with those low numbers because we are, more efficient. We have better genetics. We're, bigger frame cattle. Love or hate the feed yards and the packers, but they are super efficient at producing fat cattle and putting weight on them and producing those big cattle. We can dive into the big four. Grocery store prices are determined by the packers, the big four. One of the biggest issues with the U.S. cattle industry is all your beef coming from the U.S. 80 to 85 is typically the number I see. I've heard it could be up to 90, 95 because some of these private labels have non-disclosure agreements and stuff like that. I could be 100% wrong on that one. But at least 80 to 85% of grocery store beef comes from four places. It's all bottlenecked and processed into four major packers. You've got JBS and National Beef, which are Brazilian owned. I'll let you determine whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And we got Tyson and Cargill. So if you're buying grocery store beef, more than likely it's coming from one of those four places. Now, their biggest model is they like to buy cheap beef, put weight on them, process them, and then sell them at the grocery store. So why is grocery store beef going up if cattle numbers have been at an all-time low for the last 6 or 7 years? Well, we also have less imports coming in right now. One of the biggest reasons is there's a parasitic worm called the New World screwworm that has shut down the Mexican border to live cattle. I believe box beef, processed beef is still coming across, but I could be wrong on that. But there's, I think, 1.2 million head of cattle that normally come across the Mexican border are not coming across to get put in a feed yard or processed here in the U.S. So that has an issue with it. Also, Trump did stick a 50% tariff on Brazilian exports. Brazil has shifted their markets. They are shifting less to the U.S. and more towards China and Japan and Africa. I believe they used to ship somewhere around 50 metric tons a year, and they're less than 10 now. So the question would be bringing more Argentina beef, would that lower grocery store prices? More than likely, yes, it probably would. Do I know much about the Argentina beef industry? I do not. I've actually been to a few ranches that have had some cowboys there from Argentina, and I can tell you they're good hands, and they probably they probably raise decent beef over there, but it's going to be leaner. Most of the stuff we import here tends to be leaner than the stuff we produce here in the U.S. I'm not going to dive into imports, exports at this point, but we do export a lot of beef too. A lot of that is, cuts or undesirable cuts that the U.S. consumers just don't like, that other, parts of the world like better than we do. So instead of just grinding it and turning it into burger, we send some of those cuts overseas. So those are some of the reasons behind that. I'm not saying I'm for or against any of this stuff. I'm just giving explanations. So if you want to come back to my opinion, Do I care about more imports of Argentine beef? I think we already import, plenty. I don't really care if we import more. I just wish, and I think most, especially cow calf small operations, farmers and ranchers that I've talked to, wish we would pass, country of origin labeling laws. That's the biggest thing with the U.S. beef is we do not have country of origin labeling, cool or MCOOL laws passed. And there's a lot of political reasons for that. And honestly, I think the Packers have done a lot of lobbying in D.C. to make that sure that doesn't happen. Mexico and Canada also doesn't like country of origin labeling because it can affect their markets as well. They've actually petitioned with the WTO, the World Trade Organization, when we've tried to pass some of that stuff in the past. So you say, hey, well, I buy U.S. beef anyways at the grocery store. Well, more than likely, especially if it's ground beef, it's probably imported beef that's getting mixed, or at least some portion of imported beef mixed with U.S. beef. You're probably not buying, especially if it doesn't say product of the U.S. on it. It's probably definitely not U.S. beef. So I don't care if we import more Argentina beef. I just wish we'd pass country of origin labeling laws and let the consumer decide whether they want to pay more for American beef or if they just want the cheaper foreign imported beef. It's all safe, it's all good, it's all nutritious. You're definitely going to notice a quality difference, in my opinion, from U.S. beef or buying directly from a farmer and rancher. But overall, I understand it's hard times. We want to bring those grocery store prices down. I do not have really care that much about increasing imports, just as long as we look after the American farmer and rancher and let the American consumers decide if they want to pay more for American beef and support the American farmer and rancher.